grew physically very late compared to other, my other teammates and that. So I was 4'11" coming into my freshman year of high school, which is very small. And obviously, I didn't have the strength or the speed or anything. And so my dad always kind of instilled in me the fundamentals of kind of what it takes to field a ground ball. And so, I feel like especially in this day and age, a lot of people try to be flashy and do stuff for the camera, but especially kind of coming into high school, throughout high school, early stages of college, I think focusing on the fundamentals is the biggest thing. And then those other plays that are a little bit above average, you can kind of work on. But for the majority, I think you just need to work on your footwork, your kind of transfer. I think that's a big thing. And another thing I'd say is I grew up playing wall ball. And so in my basement, I have a cement wall that I would spend hours just throwing the ball against the wall and just kind of, working on my glove hand. So that's honestly the biggest. I would recommend just throwing the ball against the wall and just, you know, mastering that first, and then it'll kind of translate to the games.
Do you think like the fundamentals might be the more like underrated part of the position?
I think so. Because honestly, on social media and everything, you see all these highlights and all the cool plays. So I feel like people will tend to try to practice those more so than just the ground ball right at you.
Mhm.
And our coaches here at Clemson say the hardest, especially Coach Jack Leggett, who's a legend, always says the hardest ground ball is the one directly at you because you see it and you tend to get flat-footed and say, all right, it's right at me, it's easy, and you don't really attack it and you kind of just let it play you. And more times than not, it'll eat you up. Um, so yeah, I just think those routine ones and kind of mastering your footwork, I think that's the biggest thing. Yeah.
So when you say mastering your footwork, is that more on like shuffling your feet to throw the ball to first or get in position? Like, what do you mean by that?
Yeah, I mean, it's everything it takes to feel the ground ball, and you can slow down, all of the major league guys who have been doing it for their career. Especially at shortstop, it's kind of like a dance a little bit, and so once you see it, you prep step before the pitch is thrown, and then if it's right at you, you need a little bit of momentum going towards first base before you field it. And so it's something that we work on every single day, even before practice at Clemson. Um, just kind of getting the rhythm of your feet kind of in tune with the ground ball because you can't just kind of field it here and then start getting your momentum towards first base. And this is the one kind of the routine one directly at you. Um, you can slow it down and you can see that every high end shortstop will have some sort of momentum going towards first base as they're fielding it. So it's kind of all in one rhythm.
Okay. And do
Yeah.
you think the speed of college baseball makes it a little bit more difficult to like less room for error too?
One thing I noticed the jump from playing at Georgetown to ACC is definitely a little bit quicker too. Um, and especially as a shortstop, you need to have sort of an internal clock in your mind when the ground ball is hit and knowing your runner is definitely important too. Um, and so if you know that a quick guy is at the plate and he hits one right at you, you don't have to rush, but you definitely need to be cognizant of, how fast they're getting down the line and know that you can't really take your time. So that's another part of it too.
Okay. So something, I mean, and obviously you said that the speed changed and it was a little bit different going to the ACC. And I'll be honest, I watched a lot of the Clemson games, but I can't like pick out all the errors, whatnot. But I remember something I read was in the first 6 games you at Clemson, you had 5 errors. The
Yeah.
last 21, you had zero.
Yeah.
So obviously there was something going on there. Kind of talk me through like what occurred and then how you kind of fixed it because 21 straight games with zero is just that's unreal.
Yeah. Yeah. So I think it was probably a combination of, so my senior year at Georgetown, I had shoulder surgery. So I
Mhm.
didn't play in one game that season. And so my first game here at Clemson, it was the first time of me playing in a game in probably a year and a half in like a real competitive game.
Mhm.
So I think that had something to do with it, along with the fact that, I'm just kind of getting my bearings at Clemson and it definitely was faster. I think probably more than half of those, maybe 2 or 3 of them were throwing errors. And I think that was probably a combination of, me not setting my feet the right way and me maybe trying to be a little too flashy. Um, and so, yeah, it definitely is just a different experience. And I think that it was really good for me to, experience that and kind of learn from it. And yeah, it kind of just helped me because obviously baseball is a game of failure, both hitting wise and defense wise. And from those failures, you can either, let it get you down or you can take something positive from it.
Okay.
And so that's what I tried to do. And, just tried to play as solid defense as I could behind my pitchers who just always fill up the strike zone.
Yeah, definitely. So I have a couple more questions about just shortstop itself because again, I think it's such a fascinating position, and then we'll move on. But one of the questions I have is I remember reading, a bunch of baseball players from the MLB shortstops. They said something they always try and do is shorten the throw to first for several reasons. One, to maybe protect the arm, another is just like you said, the speed. Are those like little things? I know you touched on the footwork a little bit, but are those like thoughts in your mind of like how can I make this less of a struggle on my arm?
Definitely. And that's kind of what plays into getting your momentum towards first base. Um, because especially a ball that's hit really hard at you where you have a little bit of time rather than trying to get it and throw it right away, you have some time to secure it first and then take a shuffle or two. And so obviously the throw's closer, you don't have to throw it as hard. And it's kind of just a feel thing. And so based on the speed of the ball coming at you, the speed of the runner, kind of where the ball is hit, I mean obviously if it's towards your backhand, it's kind of hard to get closer to first base. So it's kind of just a combination of a lot of different factors, and that's I feel like what the viewer of baseball who has never really experienced it can't really see. But obviously the ones who have been playing for a while just have seen so many different types of ground balls. So I think just that experience and those years and years just kind of helped me to where I am now.
Mhm. Makes sense. And my last question about the position is the I don't know if the transition is the right word, but when you try and turn two, right? Let's say the ball's hit to you, second baseman's coming to the base or vice versa. Like, how do you read it? Like, what's that instinct of being able to turn to and throw the ball to first and get that out and such?
Yeah. Um, Again, I think it's dependent on where the ground ball is. And so one kind of directly at you, you try to get your momentum going towards second base again, momentum.
Mhm.
Um, and I mean, you just try to give him the best speed possible. And while everything looks very quick, the job of the person who the ground ball is hit at is not to be quick. It's to try to give them the best feed possible. And so again, it's dependent on if it's hit to your backhand, you can try to get around it and give them a short little sidearm throw. But your job as the shortstop, where the ball's hit to you, is to give him the best feed, and then it's on him to be quick. And so you always say, make sure of the first out. And so worst case scenario, you're getting the one out at second base, and then if you turn two, then that's kind of a bonus.
Yeah. So how many like I know you came into Clemson, right? That's a new second baseman there.
Yeah,
Like, do you spend a lot of time working with whoever it might be?
every single day.
Mhm.
Every single day. And last fall it was a combination of, or I guess last spring too, it was a combination of Blake Wright and Jaron Purified came in as a freshman and just tore it up. Um, but yeah, I mean every single day. So some of our practices can last pretty long time, 3 4 hours. And every day, the beginning of those practices, you're kind of with your position group, and so all of the infielders are together, and so you're constantly working with those people on where they like to feed and kind of the timing of it all. And so it definitely doesn't come instantly. There are always little errors, but again you learn from them. Um, and yeah, so between Blake Wright and Jaron, I mean, you see maybe we've turned 15 double plays in games, call it, but we've turned probably 1,000 double plays in practice.